All right, how's everybody doing? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. It is Thursday, December 13th, 2018. And we're broadcasting on Facebook Live and then also on YouTube as well. So I hope everybody's doing well. Today's been very, very busy day. It's been a very hectic, busy past 48 hours, basically, if you've been paying attention to what's going on in the news and what's going on with Donald Trump, investigations into Donald Trump, things like this. If you've been paying attention to our timeline, you've been seeing me post articles, okay, dealing with it. All right, so what I want to do is I've been watching this all day and been busy editing video today also of Sunday night's episode of the African History Network show and a broadcast I did on Tuesday. So what I want to do is try to go through and recap what's happened in the past, say, 48 hours. We saw the sentencing of Michael Cohen. Yesterday, he got 3 years. He's getting 3 years in prison. He hasn't gone to prison yet, but he was sentenced to 3 years, 36 months. We saw Maria Butina, who the Russian was pled guilty, and she's cooperating with the feds. She pled guilty to one count of operating as a unlicensed foreign agent. And then we have some breaking news tonight as well, dealing with investigations into Trump. And I wanted to broadcast maybe about 30 minutes ago, but there was some breaking news in like the past 15 minutes. So I'm going to try to bring you up to speed on this, and we'll give you some sources also. Okay, so you want to write down the names of some of these articles. Okay, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media pages. Invite your friends to tune in, and then also African American business owners. Hey, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast, and we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Okay. All right. So let's deal with the Wall Street Journal had a breaking news story tonight. And it deals with something that I've been watching and I've talked about before on my shows. And this deals with Trump's inauguration, okay? So remember the inauguration was January 20th, 2017, right? And this deals with the funds that were raised for the inauguration. $107 million were raised, but there has been no real accurate accounting of it, and people have been asking what happened to all the money. Where's all the money? Okay, so I'll give you the name of the Wall Street Journal article, then we'll look at the article from NBCnews.com. And a lot of these articles come from NBCnews.com, and the reason why is because it's free to read the articles from NBCnews.com. I'll give you some from Washington Post and New York Times, but with the Washington Post and New York Times, you're limited on how many articles you can read for free each month. Washington Post limits you to 6. I think the same thing for New York Times. So I have monthly digital subscriptions to both of them because I read 6 articles from both of them each day. So you can follow along with this and do a lot of research. A lot of these articles come from NBC News because you can read those articles for free, okay? In Washington, in the Wall Street Journal, the majority of the articles from the Wall Street Journal, from their website, you have to have a digital subscription to read those articles. And that's like $35 a month. I know because I had one and I canceled it. But just for reference, the article from the Wall Street Journal broke this afternoon. Trump inauguration spending under criminal investigation by federal prosecutors. Trump inauguration spending under criminal investigation by federal prosecutors. Criminal. So Trump can't say, oh, well, this is just a civil offense or something like that, okay? Like he was trying to say, dealing with the campaign finance law violations dealing with the payoffs to Stormy Daniels and McCullough, the Playboy playmate. Okay, that's criminal also, but Trump is trying to downplay this. This right here, this is a criminal investigation. Okay, so let's look at the reporting from NBCnews.com, and then we're going to deal with all these stories a lot of these stories that are broken in the past 48 hours. All right. So NBCnews.com has an article: Trump inaugural committee under criminal investigation for misuse of funds paid to play report. Isn't pay to play what Trump was accusing Hillary Clinton of? Trump was projecting. Isn't that what he accused Hillary Clinton of? The investigation began in part after federal agents seized materials from the president's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was the link to all of this. Michael Cohen got you Trump's CFO, okay? Michael Cohen has recordings. Michael Cohen is going to bring Trump down. He's the connection to all of this. But how did we get to Michael Cohen? It was Stormy Daniels. Because of Stormy Daniels, we got to Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was just sentenced yesterday. So all of this stuff is coming and collapsing in on Trump. And what we have to understand is January 3rd, 2019, Democrats take control of the House of Representatives. There are up to 85 investigations they can launch into Trump, his campaign, and the transition in his administration, up to 85. So we haven't even seen anything yet, and it's already collapsing on him, okay? So let's look at this here. So this article was last updated, this article was posted at 5:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So Donald Trump's inaugural committee is under criminal investigation by federal prosecutors in Manhattan for pay-to-play and misspending some of the $107 million it raised from donations, the Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday. The probe was launched by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, the paper said, citing people familiar with the investigation. So this is not the Mueller investigation doing this. This is the U.S. Attorney's Office, okay? All right, in Manhattan. So you have Mueller doing his investigation, and it's Mueller time. Mueller is wearing Trump's ass out. I'm telling you right now, Mueller is wearing Trump's ass out. And this is one of the few cases where Black people are actually rooting for the FBI to win. But Mueller is wearing Trump's ass out. But you also have the U.S. Attorney's Office there in Manhattan, in the Southern District of New York, things like that. You have them doing investigations as well. So the probe was launched by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan. The paper says, citing people familiar with the investigation. The investigation, which is reportedly in its early stages, is looking into whether some of the committee's top donors gave money to gain access to the incoming Trump administration to influence policy positions, which could be a violation of anti-corruption law. I can tell you right now, they're going to find that that's what happened. I can tell you right now, they're going to find that's what happened. The Wall Street Journal reported that the investigation began in part after federal agents seized materials from Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, who was sentenced on Wednesday, December 12th, to 3 years in federal prison for unrelated crimes. Okay, we'll get to his sentencing and what he pled guilty to. Also, we'll talk some about that. So NBC News has not independently verified the Wall Street Journal report at the time of this reporting. FBI agents raided Michael Cohen's office, his hotel room where he was staying because there were renovations taking place at his home, and they raided his home. They hit 3 places, right? And Trump said that the agents came and busted down the door and it was unlawful what they were doing, all this stuff. Yeah, whatever. Okay, whatever. So that happened back in April of 2018. Everybody remembers when that happened. And they were seeking information about a payment that Michael Cohen made to adult film star Stormy Daniels, who claimed she and Donald Trump had an affair shortly before the 2016 election. Okay. So just a clarification here. The affair took place some years ago. The payment they were talking about was made shortly before the 2016 election. The way they have it worded makes it seem like the affair took place shortly before the 2016 election. Now, that's not what happened. So during the raid, FBI agents seized a recorded conversation between Michael Cohen and Stephanie Winston Wolkoff, a former advisor to First Lady Melania Trump, who worked on events for the inaugural committee, the Wall Street Journal reported. On the recording, Stephanie Winston Wolkoff reportedly raised concerns about how the committee was spending money. Okay? So the Wall Street Journal reported that it could not determine when the conversation took place or why it was recorded, but said it is in the possession of federal prosecutors in Manhattan. Michael Cohen has a number of recordings. Okay, we've only heard maybe one or two of them. The majority of recordings that Michael Cohen has, we have not heard and don't really know the content of. Remember, it was the Nixon tapes that brought Richard Nixon down, because once he turned over those Nixon tapes, he resigned 3 days later. Michael Cohen has tapes, and Omarosa has tapes. Omarosa's been interviewed by the Mueller team also. She's turned all those recordings over to the Mueller team. Michael Cohen has turned all the recordings over to the Mueller team. And I think also the Southern District of New York as well. Because he was working with both of them, but he wasn't as forthcoming and as helpful to the Southern District of New York as he was to the Mueller team. But go research, go to history.com, which is the official website of the History Channel, and search for Watergate, because I've gone and researched all that, and I deal with that in my lectures. Okay, when Richard Nixon turned over the Nixon tapes, that was the evidence that was needed, and he resigned. He announced his resignation August 8th, 1974. He became the first sitting U.S. president to resign from office. And then the following day, April 9th, 1974, 12 noon, he officially resigned. And Donald Trump is going to be forced to resign from office as well. I said this going back to January of 2017. If you listen to my radio shows, the African History Network show, you watch my Facebook Live broadcast, I've been saying this because I was studying this in 2015 and 2016 leading up to the election. And in January 2017, I said Donald Trump is going to be forced to resign from office. So the Wall Street Journal reported that it could not determine when the conversation took place or why it was recorded, but said it is in the possession of federal prosecutors in Manhattan. In public filings, the committee identified vendors accounting for $61 million of the $103 million it spent, according to the Wall Street Journal. So they're trying to figure out what happened to this other $40+ million. Okay, where does other money go? The committee is required to publicly disclose its top 5 vendors as a nonprofit organization. Federal Election Commission, that's the FEC. Go to their website, fec.gov. fec.gov. That's the Federal Election Commission. Because at fec.gov, you can look up any political candidate and you can see who donated to their campaign. You can see which corporations donated to their campaign, fec.gov. I've been to the website because I was looking at who gave donations to Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith in Mississippi. I was going and researching that, fec.gov. That's one of the most powerful websites, Federal Election Commission. Most of our people don't even know anything about that, because when you're looking at how to hold elected officials accountable, and you're looking at fighting back against elected officials who are writing policies that do your people harm, you can go to that website, you can find the corporations that donated money to them, And then you can organize and put economic pressure on these corporations and leverage the dollars we spend with them to put pressure on them and threaten economic withdrawal strategies, nationwide economic withdrawal strategies, to put pressure on them to keep the politicians they donated money to in line. But we don't understand concepts of political self-defense and economic guerrilla warfare and how to really fight. FEC.gov. We need to research that website. Now, Federal Election Commission records show that donors included casino magnate Sheldon Adelson. Sheldon Adelson was one of the biggest financiers of Donald Trump's campaign. He came later. The early financier of Donald Trump's campaign was a man named Robert Mercer, a billionaire named Robert Mercer, who's a hedge fund manager. And when you study Robert Mercer and you start following the money, connect the dots, and I was talking about this back in 2016, Robert Mercer was the main financier of Breitbart News. Breitbart.com, who Stephen K. Bannon said was the home of the alt-right. Well, Stephen K. Bannon was running Breitbart before he came over in August of 2016 to run Donald Trump's campaign. Okay? That was after he came over after Paul Manafort resigned. Paul Manafort is in prison right now. Robert Mercer was financing Breitbart. So then Stephen K. Bannon, one of the heroes of the alt-right, comes over to be Donald Trump's campaign chair. And then he becomes an advisor to Trump and the administration. When you study Kellyanne Conway, okay? Lion-ass Kellyanne Conway. You study Kellyanne Conway. Before she came over to Donald Trump's campaign, she was running Robert Mercer's family's super PAC. She was running his family's super PAC, the Mercer family, okay? So when you start connecting the dots between these people and you start following the money, it goes back to certain people. It goes back to Robert Mercer, who's a white supremacist, by the way, also. There's a huge article from, what was that? Was it the New Yorker or something like that? I'll try to pull up this article, man. There's a huge article about Robert Mercer. See, most of our people don't know who these people are, okay? Yeah, here we go. From NewYorker.com, okay? This is from March 27th, 2017, 2 months after the inauguration. The reclusive hedge fund tycoon behind the Trump presidency. How Robert Mercer exploited America's populist insurgency. This is a guy against civil rights, by the way, also, okay? The reclusive hedge fund tycoon behind the Trump presidency. How Robert Mercer exploited America's populist insurgency. Okay, now keep in mind, Trump on the campaign trail said he didn't need anybody's money. He wasn't going to take donations. He wasn't going to take donations from corporations. He was going to fund his own campaign. That's a lie. He didn't fund his own campaign. He donated very little, maybe about 10%. Sheldon Adelson was another billionaire who was helping finance Donald Trump. Okay. So read this article here. We'll post a link here. This is from NewYorker.com. The reclusive hedge fund tycoon behind the Trump presidency. We got to understand who these people are. And Mercer ain't gonna go to prison. Mercer's not gonna go to prison. Trump is going to have to deal with state attorney generals prosecuting him. Okay, like Letitia James, who in the state of New York, because of NBCnews.com just had an article from December 12th, Wednesday. It was Wednesday, December 12th. Incoming New York Attorney General plans wide-ranging investigations of Trump and family. Oh, Merry Christmas, sucker. Merry Christmas, Donald Trump. Happy New Year. Because 2019 gonna be a mother for the Trump family. I'm telling you right now. Just elected Letitia James, you know it's a sister, Queen Letitia. We need to call her Queen Letitia. just elected Letitia James, who takes office in January of 2019, tells NBC News she will probe real estate deals, Trump Tower meeting, emoluments, Trump Foundation, and more. Oh, Trump gonna have a hell of a year. I'm telling you right now. I told you it was coming. I told you it was coming. Okay. All right. So we have this. Okay. So Federal Election Commission. Let me finish this last paragraph. Federal Election Commission records show that donors included casino magnate Sheldon Adelson, AT&T. You know AT&T, telephone service, cell phone service. AT&T donated to Trump, and Boeing planes, all of whom gave $1 million or more. But the Wall Street Journal reported that there is no sign that those donors are under investigation. Keep in mind, this investigation is early. It's early in the investigation. Now, I'm not sure if it was to the inauguration, but I know to the campaign, Core Civic, which used to be called Corrections Corporation of America, which is the largest owner-operator of privatized prisons in the country, and Geo Group, which used to be called Wackenhut, second largest owner-operator of privatized prisons in the country, they donated almost $600,000 to Donald Trump's campaign. This is why during the campaign of March of 2016, when Trump was interviewed by Chris Matthews on Hardball on MSNBC, he said privatized prisons seem like they work very well and save a lot of money. He said they seem very efficient. No, they don't. They don't save a lot of money and they're not very efficient. They have more violations, more human rights violations, things like this than state-run prisons. So then when he becomes president, what does he do? He reverses President Obama's initiative announced in August of 2016 not to renew federal contracts for privatized prisons, because the war on drugs under President Obama was winding down. A lot of people don't want to talk about this. A lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that the U.S. prison population dropped to its lowest point in 20 years in December 2015. And that was reported by the Department of Justice, their year-end report, December of 2016. It dropped down to 1.53 million. Trump reverses this. This is why Trump talking about criminal justice reform is a joke. He didn't campaign on criminal justice reform in 2016, and he didn't campaign on criminal justice reform in midterm elections in 2018. This is why him talking about criminal justice reform is a joke. If he wanted criminal justice reform, he would not have nominated an attorney general named Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who is totally against criminal justice reform. Not only that, there was bipartisan support for a criminal justice reform bill in the U.S. Senate in 2016. And it was Jeff Sessions who blocked it. So if you're for criminal justice reform, why are you going to nominate an attorney general and all these departments, the FBI, the DEA, U.S. Bureau of Prisons, all this stuff reports to the Department of Justice, and you nominate a guy who's totally against not only criminal justice reform, but he's totally against holding police officers accountable. This is why Jeff Sessions was against consent decrees to cause reform in police departments and hold them accountable after they were investigated for patterns and practices of these police departments. Jeff Sessions was totally against that. So Trump is just playing people. Okay? All right, so check out this first article. Trump inaugural committee under criminal investigation for misuse of funds, pay to play report. Pay to play report. This is from NBCnews.com. All right. Okay, so let's go to the next one. We'll try to squeeze in some of your comments here. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your social media pages. Ask your friends to tune in also. Okay, and let me see here. Also, hey, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Or if you don't have a PayPal account, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and you can donate there. Click on the yellow donate button also, okay? at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, let's continue here. Okay, so next story, next bomb that dropped. Let's go to this one because this story just broke shortly before I came on, about 15, 20 minutes before I came on. And let me just refresh my screen in case there is an update. Former Trump tax attorney raided by the FBI in Chicago again. That just happened today. Former tax attorney raided by the FBI in Chicago again. Okay, rawstory.com broke this story just a few minutes before I came on. I was reading it before I came on. Say, damn! I said, man, I wish this stuff would stop so I could do this broadcast. Donald Trump's former Chicago tax attorney, Alderman Ed Brooke, had his City Hall office raided by the FBI on Thursday. And it wasn't the first time he had an office searched by the Bureau. Now, NBC Channel 5, local NBC affiliate there in the Chicago area, the political editor, Carol Marin, tweeted Thursday evening that Alderman Ed Burke's City Hall office was, quote unquote, re-raided by the Bureau, okay, by the FBI, the second time his office had been raided in a month after the FBI searched it on November 29th. On December 10th, the Chicago Times reported that the FBI had also seized Alderman Ed Burke's cell phone. The same day, the newspaper also reported that the long-serving alderman's top political aide was questioned by the feds before the late November raid. Now, Alderman Ed Burke, who's been an alderman for almost 50 years, damn. Doesn't he remind you of Alderman Davis on Good Times? Bald-headed Alderman Davis. I'm not a crook, Alderman Davis. I'm not saying Ed Burke is a crook. I'm just saying he was an alderman in Chicago also. Alderman Davis, okay. You too, Alona. Remember Alderman Davis? So Alderman Ed Burke, who's been an alderman for almost 50 years, did Trump's property taxes from 2006 until 2018, okay? Now, we don't know exactly what the connection is, but it's just interesting. All this stuff is going down and his office gets raided by the feds November 29th, and then again today. It's just, you know, I don't know what the connection is, but so check out this story from rawstory.com also. FBI, so Bill Cameron tweeted 12:58 p.m. today, FBI raid underway at paper-covered offices of powerful Alderman Ed Burke's City Council Finance Committee, where Burke specifically oversees $100 million plus of city workers' compensation benefits, and Chicago politics in general. Woo! All right. Now, this may not have anything to do with Trump, or it may have something to do with Trump. But all I can say is follow the money. All right, so we'll post this link here. Former Trump tax attorney raided by the FBI in Chicago. Okay, again. Okay, so that story just broke right before we came on the air, and I'm about to refresh my screen and look at my news feeds and see like this and see something broke while we're on the air. All right, so then let's look at this. Let's look at this other story. Let's see, where do we want to go? Okay, just give me a second here. So I have all these stories pulled up. Okay, so let's go back to Michael Cohen. Let's look at what happened yesterday, right? And then, Washington Post had a good interactive graphic with a lot of evidence, right? So, because you still have a lot of Donald Trump supporters walking around talking about no collusion and all this stuff, right? Russians interacted with at least 14 Trump associates during the campaign and the transition. Russians interacted with at least 14 Trump associates during the campaign and the transition. WashingtonPost.com from December 9th, 2018. Go read that because they have a graphic and they show you the pictures of all these Russians and who they interacted with. And Maria Butina was one of them, all right, who just pled guilty today. So let's go to that story. We'll come back to Michael Cohen. All right, let's go to Maria Butina, the Russian, who and then we got to talk about David Pecker, right, and the National Enquirer, because all this stuff is coming out. What's done in the dark will come to the light. Okay, and there's always a Pecker getting somebody in trouble. David Pecker, that is. Okay. You can't write a story better than this stuff. You can't, if you got Stephen King and you got Zane and you got who else? I don't know. You got Steve Harvey, you got George Lucas, you got, I know he just passed away, but Stan Lee. You couldn't write something better than this stuff. Okay. All right, so Russian Maria Butina pleads guilty in case to forge Kremlin bond with U.S. conservatives. Now, this got a whole lot of Republicans scared to death because they were up here taking pictures with this Russian woman. Rick Santorum was one of them, former U.S. Senator to Pennsylvania. Okay. She infiltrated the National Rifle Association. The National Rifle Association spent $30 million to get Donald Trump elected. They spent money on Donald Trump campaign ads. They spent money on negative ads against Hillary Clinton, right? So Washington Post has an article about this, and then also NBC News has one as well dealing with Butina. And the one from NBC News is entitled, Russian Operative Maria Butina pleads guilty to conspiracy. Butina was arrested in July 2018 for allegedly conspiring to infiltrate politically powerful U.S. organizations, including the NRA, the National Rifle Association, which is a big supporter of Donald Trump. This was done in an effort to push Moscow's agenda. Oh, but there's no collusion. There's no coordination. It's just you got all these Russians all over the place, right? And it's just coincidence. Research Malcolm Nance, counterterrorist expert for 35 years. You see him on MSNBC a lot, and he wrote the book, The Plot to Hack America, I think is what it's called, and it dealt with how Russia and Putin would hack the U.S. election, and that's what happened. And Matthew Nance on his Twitter page a couple months ago, he said, you have to do a lot of organizing for a coincidence to happen. He said, you have to do a lot of organizing for a coincidence to happen. So Russian operative Maria Butina admitted Thursday to conspiring to infiltrate influential conservative organizations, including the National Rifle Association, in an effort to push Moscow's agenda. Moscow's agenda is Putin's agenda. Let's just be very clear. Butina, 30 years old, who has agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors, pleaded guilty in a Washington courtroom to one count of conspiracy to violate the law governing foreign agents operating in the U.S. She was an unregistered foreign agent. The felony carries a 5-year prison term, but the estimated sentencing guideline range is from 0 to 6 months in prison. The charge was brought by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., unrelated to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. So this wasn't Mueller bringing these charges. This was the U.S. Attorney's Office there in D.C. So you got the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, you got the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., and you have Mueller, and you got Queen Letitia, who comes into power in January 2019 as Attorney General of the state of New York. Now, Judge Tanya Chutkan, Chutkan, the decision on whether to deport you is not one that this court will make. So Maria Butina has been held without bail after she was arrested in July 2018, a former graduate student of American University in Washington. She had been in the US on a student visa. In pleading guilty, Butina admitted to working with her Republican operative boyfriend, Paul Erickson. He was like 51. She was like 29 at the time, right? And he's identified in court papers as a US person, as US person one, US person one. So remember, Trump was identified as individual one. Paul Erickson is identified as US person one. At the behest of a Russian official, in order to establish unofficial lines of communication with Americans having power and influence over US politics for the benefit of the Russian Federation, end quote. Let me repeat this. In pleading guilty, Maria Butina admitted to working with her Republican operative boyfriend, Paul Erickson, who's identified in court papers as US person one. And this coordination, she was working at the behest of a Russian official in order to, quote, establish unofficial lines of communication with Americans having power and influence over US politics for the benefit of the Russian Federation, end quote. Now, Republican operative, her boyfriend, Paul Erickson, has not been charged. In a statement, his attorney, William Hurd, H-U-R-D, said, quote, Paul Erickson is a good American. He has done nothing to harm our country and never would, end quote. Okay, we'll see. Now, the Russian fits the description. The Russian who would be the handler of hers, the Russian given the directions, okay, that fits the description of Alexander Torshin, who recently retired as deputy governor of the Central Bank of Russia. As NBC News has previously reported, Alexander Torshin reached out to the Trump campaign seeking a meeting between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. Alexander Torshin met Donald Trump Jr. in May of 2016 at a National Rifle Association dinner. So you keep, every time you look around, it's a Russian. But we're just supposed to believe this is a coincidence. In December 2015, Maria Butina helped orchestrate a trip by National Rifle Association members to Moscow, to Russia. Why were they going to Russia? There's no effort to make guns legal in Russia. They don't have gun rights in Russia. So why is the National Rifle Association, why are members going to Russia? In December 2015, Maria Butina helped orchestrate a trip by National Rifle Association members to Moscow, in which she set up a meeting between the American gun supporters and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, court papers say. Now, remember, May 11th of 2017, what happened? That was the meeting at the White House where there was no American media present, only Russian media. Who was the meeting with? Donald Trump and Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister. Who popped up at the meeting and nobody knew he was going to be there? Sergei Kislyak, who at the time was the Russian ambassador to the US. Nobody knew Sergei Kislyak was going to be there. That was May 10th. That was May 10th, 2017. What happened the day before? Donald Trump fired James Comey. And at the meeting with Sergei Lavrov and Sergei Kislyak, he bragged about firing Comey. The next day, May 11th, Donald Trump is interviewed by Lester Holt, NBC News. And he said when he fired Comey, he was thinking to himself, you know, this Russia thing is a hoax. He admitted that he was firing Comey because of the Russian investigation. And he's so stupid, he just sits up here and tells on himself. I hope he keeps talking. I hope he keeps tweeting. Because he's going down, he's going to go down faster than Stormy Daniels. So after the meeting, Maria Butina sent Alexander Torshin a message revealing the Russians' true aims. Quote, we should let them express their gratitude now. We will put pressure on them quietly later, end quote, the message read, according to prosecutors. We should let them express their gratitude now. The NRA members that are going over to Moscow, let them express their gratitude now. We will put pressure on them quietly later. The National Rifle Association did not return a request for comment to NBC News because all this stuff is unraveling. Now, remember, now this trip to Moscow, I don't know if this was for the 10th anniversary meeting, the 10th anniversary celebration of Russia Today TV, but that was December of 2015 also. Remember, you saw the picture of Vladimir Putin sitting at the dinner table, and to the right of Vladimir Putin was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. The Michael Flynn who was fired by Trump after President Obama told Trump, don't hire Lieutenant General Michael Flynn because I had to fire him, and Trump did it anyway. And Lieutenant General Michael Flynn was Donald Trump's national security advisor. But he's sitting there December 2015 next to Vladimir Putin. Then he becomes Donald Trump's national security advisor. Trump doesn't take the oath of office till January 20th, 2017, remember. Who was sitting across the table from Vladimir Putin and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn? Jill Stein. Jill Stein. The Jill Stein that ran for president and was polling at what, 2% in national polls and stayed in the race all the way to the end? And then when Hillary Clinton lost and Donald Trump won, then she's going to talk about she's going to run money to pay for a recount? Jill Stein was sitting across the table. We're still trying to figure out, why was Jill Stein there? Who paid for Jill Stein to travel to Russia and travel back? Who paid for her hotel accommodations? Jill Stein was sitting across the table from Vladimir Putin and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn in December 2015. Go research that. So when you start connecting the dots, you sit back, because I've been studying this since 2015. I'm like, damn. I said, when you start connecting the dots, which I have, I'm sitting back. I'm like, damn, this is deeper than Watergate. You can't write something like this. You can't write no fiction like this. I'm telling you. So, and then I'll give you a source for that, right? Because I talked about this on when I was doing the morning show here in Detroit, 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF. My show was on Sunday nights, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. But I used to be on the morning show every Thursday, Wake Up with Steve Hood. And if you remember, if you follow me on Facebook, you used to see those Facebook Live broadcasts. I would do 7 a.m., right? 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Thursday mornings. And I remember in I think it was 2017, March, April, something like that. I did a segment on his show, and I was breaking down this stuff and dealing with, wait a second, why was Jill Stein there in December 2015? And I asked the question, is it possible that Jill Stein was working with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin to help Trump win and to take votes away from Hillary Clinton in key battleground states? Because she didn't have a chance in hell of winning, and she stayed in the race to the end. Why? And then Jill Stein was running around talking about there's no difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Oh, really? You ever go study their policies? There's a huge difference. Okay, so let's look at this here. Where's that article? Yeah, I think it was NBCnews.com. Guess who came to dinner? Guess who came to dinner with Flynn and Putin? Okay, so I want to show you this, because I don't want you to think I'm making this up. See, proper documentation ends all conversation. I can prove what I'm talking about. I can't speak for other people. I can prove what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to do a screen share here. And I want you to see this. And you go research this yourself. I tell people, you watch my lectures, these like get my DVD lectures at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I tell people, you don't have to believe a word that I say. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You go research this yourself, okay? So read this article. Guess who came to dinner with Flynn and Putin, right? NBCnews.com. And this is great because what they do is they show you the names of the people sitting at the damn table, right? The head table of a gala celebrating the 10th anniversary of Russia Today in December of 2015 included Russian President Vladimir Putin and American retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. So this article is from April 11th, 2017. And so let's look at this here. So we see Vladimir Putin right here. To the right of him is Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. We see Jill Stein right here, U.S. Green Party presidential candidate. We see Dmitry Peskov, a spokesperson for Vladimir Putin. And we see these other Russians around them as well. Okay, go research this. We're still trying to figure out, why I know she was interviewed by Alex Whittam, MSNBC, things like that, but we still trying to get, still trying to put this together. Like, why was she really there and who paid for it? Oh, here's the other thing. The dossier by Christopher Steele, the British ex-MI6 agent, the dossier, he talks about Jill Stein in the dossier, the 35-page dossier also. I'm telling you, this is just the tip of the iceberg. All right, so check this out also. Now, I'm not attacking people that voted for Jill Stein. I'm not. Okay, I don't know. I don't know why they voted for Jill. Now, I know, let me take that back. All right. I'm not attacking people that vote for Jill Stein. I don't get caught up in personalities. I study policies. I don't get caught up in personalities. Okay? Now, and here's the other thing. I think when all is said and done and the dust settles, I think you're going to find that Jill Stein having a platform of getting reparations for African Americans, I think you're going to find that was poll tested. I think you're going to find that was engineered to deliberately take a certain percentage of African Americans away from votes for Hillary Clinton. And they know damn well she don't have a chance in hell of winning. So they know they're not gonna have to pay any reparations. And I saw people running around talking about Jill Stein gonna get us reparations. I was like, how? Explain that to me. How? They know damn well that she could have promised every Negro Escalade and a Mercedes-Benz underneath their Christmas tree Christmas morning. And she wouldn't have to deliver on that either. And I'm sitting back looking at African Americans who's supposed to know better, out here running around saying Jill Stein gonna get us reparations. It makes no sense whatsoever. See, they're operating based upon emotions. And when you go and look at some of the ads, there were 3,000 ads that Russians took out on Facebook. They spent $100,000. And you go look at a lot of these ads. These ads were designed to cause racial discord in America and to pit groups of Americans against each other. And they were designed to discourage African Americans from coming out and voting for Hillary Clinton. There were ads that were demonizing Black Lives Matter. There've been a number of stories dealing with this. There was one ad showing an African American woman pretending to fire an assault rifle. I'll just give you a few of these ads here so you can research this. Because you see, my degree is in business administration with a major in marketing. I understand propaganda. Because see, in marketing, which I graduated in '94 from Wayne State University. So I understand how to craft messages. The foundation of marketing and psychology. Before we took our lowest level marketing class, which was marketing 430 at the time, marketing 430, we had to have successfully passed psychology 1, psychology 2, philosophy 1, and philosophy 2. So when I'm looking at certain messages, I understand what's behind it because that's how I was trained. So I'm looking at, I know when I'm looking at propaganda, and then I also understand how to separate these fake media sources from the real media sources, because I monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis. I do this stuff full time. I monitor about 35 different news sources on a daily basis. So during the President 2016 campaign, I'm seeing all these fake news sources pop up. And I understand how they're crafting their news stories, and they create these titles and they put them on Facebook. They create these titles to draw attention, and they create these titles to say what a lot of people want to say, but the story is totally made up. When you start looking for their sources, their stories are totally made up. And I looked at people circulating these stories over and over again, not even reading them, but just circulating them because this story said what they wanted to say about Hillary Clinton. But when you actually research it, it's a fake story from a fake news source. And a lot of those news sources don't even exist today. A lot of those websites have been shut down. Why? Because they serve their purpose. So if we look at, I'll just give you one article here. I'll give you two because they're popping up. I have them all. I have like thousands of articles bookmarked. So these articles are popping up. Let's see here. One of them is Russian operatives use Black Lives Matter Facebook ads to exploit America's racial and religious division. That's Washington Post, okay? Russian operatives use Facebook ads to exploit America's racial and religious divisions. This is from September 25th, 2017. The batch of more than 3,000 Russian-bought ads that Facebook is preparing to turn over to Congress shows a deep understanding of social divides in American society, with some ads promoting African-American rights groups, including Black Lives Matter, and others suggesting that these same groups pose a rising political threat, say people familiar with the covert influence campaign. The Russian campaign taking advantage of Facebook's ability to send contrary messages to different groups of users based on their political and demographic characteristics also sought to sow discord among religious groups. Other ads highlight support for Democrat Hillary Clinton among Muslim women. Okay, it was all a psychological operation, a psych ops. It was all a psych ops plan. And I'm sitting back looking at this. And I'm looking at all this fake stuff circulating around from websites that didn't even exist the previous year. Okay, so we'll post this article, then I'll give you one more to research. This other one here is Washington Post. And you can research this from different sources if you want. These are the ones popping up here because I have a bunch bookmarked, so I just search for keywords. These are the ones that, some of the ones that I have bookmarked. Russian Facebook ads showed a Black woman firing a rifle amid efforts to stoke racial strife. Russian Facebook ads show a Black woman firing a rifle amid efforts to stoke racial strife. Okay, that's from October 2nd, 2017, Washington Post. One of the Russian-bought advertisements that Facebook shared with congressional investigators on Monday featured photographs of an armed Black woman dry firing a rifle, and dry firing means pulling the trigger of a weapon without a bullet in the chamber. This is according to people familiar with the investigation. Investigators believe the advertisement may have been designed to encourage African-American militancy and at the same time to stoke fears within white communities, the people said, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss the probe. But the precise purpose of the ad remains unclear to investigators, the people said. I can tell you. See, so they put ads out like this to galvanize white people to come out and vote for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump ran on the platform of law and order. Donald Trump ran on the platform of a backlash to 2 terms of President Barack Obama, the first African-American president. So when they are running Facebook ads of an African-American woman dry firing a rifle, if I remember correctly, it was an assault rifle, okay? That's designed to scare the hell out of white people to get them to come out and vote for Trump. That's what all this is about. Okay, so let me post these 2. We'll post the links to these 2 articles here, so you can check this out also. All right, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page, your YouTube channels. Invite your friends to tune in. Hey, if you're just tuning in, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. And we're dealing with breaking down these some of these stories involving Donald Trump, the Trump administration, Michael Cohen, Maria Butina, that have happened in the last 48 hours, because this is a whole lot. There's a whole lot that's happened. Okay, so we're breaking down some of this so people can better understand what's going on. Okay, and if you like this type of information, hey, you can support the African History Network. One, you can visit our website, africanhistorynetwork.com. We have all of my DVD lectures there. We have online courses that I teach. We have a bundle pack right now, a 10-course online bundle pack that includes understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 14-hour, 10-session online course. So let's say a 14-hour, 7-session online course. So that 10-course online bundle pack is on sale, $60 regularly, $130. It's all on demand. Watch at your own watch at your own pace. It's streaming. Watch from around the world. Watch as many times as you want to. We just posted a link here, or you can go to africanhistorynetwork.com. And then African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast, and email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise on the audio podcast of our radio shows and the broadcasts we do throughout the week. We're on 6 different podcast platforms. Each episode gets between 4,000 to 8,000 listens on Blog Talk Radio. People around the country listen to the podcast of our shows. You can email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. And then also check out the 8 DVD bundle pack we have, our latest bundle pack, The Africans That Were Here Before Columbus. The Africans That Were Here Before Columbus. This was the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years ago. It includes a double lecture I did with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. So it includes a double lecture I did with Dr. David Imhotep also, okay? All right, let's go to some of your comments here quickly. Charlene said, while we keep talking about history we know, why not make history again? What history are you referring to that we know, Charlene? Because I do lectures all across the country, and a lot of this information, when I talk to people about it and ask people about it, they don't know it. So what history are you talking about that we already know? Because I, when I was speaking in San Diego in August, a lot of this information people don't know. When I do lectures in Detroit, when I was speaking in Atlanta in July 2018, a lot of this stuff people don't know. When I was speaking in Baltimore in April of 2018. Okay, so what are you referring to? Statute. Okay, so we got people talking about statutes and codes and all this stuff. And okay, so why did Trump have to pay a $24 million settlement to the state of New York for running a fake university. Okay, I'm not even going to deal with that one. It's just some nonsense. Patricia Thomas said, that's right, Michael, break it down for us. Okay. Check out an article posted in the Washington Examiner, December 10th, 2018. Eric said, Eric Spencer. So what was the article about, Eric? We've got Sandy Smith watching. We've got Ivory Star. Sandy Smith, but Facebook missed all that activity. Yeah, well, see, what happened was Zuckerberg and officials at Facebook were in denial for a long time about the impact Facebook had on the 2016 election. But at the same time, they were marketing to candidates during the 2016 election, talking about how you should advertise with Facebook and take out ads on Facebook to reach people. So you can, on the one hand, market to candidates and say you should advertise on Facebook to reach people, and then on the other hand say, oh, well, the ads taken out on Facebook and these fake stories floating around didn't have an impact on the election. You can't have it both ways. Okay, people want to talk nonsense and conspiracy theories. Okay, well, you don't have to be here. So, you know, it's interesting. I find it interesting when people come with all that nonsense. They don't tell you what to do about it. They just come with a bunch of nonsense. Okay. Trump always says it's fake news. Yeah. So, see, and the reason why Trump says it's fake news is because he knows the media is holding him accountable and fact checking what he says and exposing him as a fraud. And he does this on purpose. And he was in an interview with Leslie Stahl on for 60 Minutes. He talked about how the reason why he does that is because when the media comes out with really damaging information about him, his followers won't believe it. Okay, that is a strategy of dictators. That is a strategy from that is an authoritarian strategy, and is a strategy from dictators. Okay, all right. So this is why this is why a media holding him accountable, a press holding him accountable, is so extremely important. And I'm a member of the media. I have a press pass. Radio talk show host here in Detroit on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. So this is why the type of work that the fact checkers at the Washington Post, New York Times, NBC News, this is why this stuff is so important, okay? To expose this information, because your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. So people operate from within the circumference of their own awareness. This is why the work that Roland Martin does is so important, okay? Roland Martin Unfiltered. And contrary to popular belief, Roland is not a Democrat. When I hear people say that, you don't know Roland. I know Roland. I used to guest host Roland Martin's national radio show numerous times when I was doing my national show on the Empowerment Radio Network, and because we were both on the network at the same time, and Warren Ballantine was on the network as well, my frat brother Warren Ballantine. And then even when Roland left the Empowerment Radio Network and he went to the, it was another radio network, I forgot the name of it, the Perry Broadcasting System. I guest hosted for him there numerous times as well. So Roland Martin Unfiltered, and that's why we share the live broadcast when he's on his daily digital show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. The work he does there is extremely, extremely important. Okay. So follow him on Facebook and YouTube at Roland Martin. You can watch those broadcasts there and those segments on Facebook, especially on YouTube. Roland Martin on YouTube. Okay, so let's go to this other story here. I think we just have a couple more. I was trying to narrow it down because there are a lot. I'm just trying to narrow it down, just give you like some updates on what's been going on in the past 48 hours. Okay. All right. So let's look at this next story here. Okay, let's go to Michael Cohen. Okay. He was sentenced yesterday. He was sentenced Wednesday, December 12th, to 3 years in federal prison. Okay, and let's pull up this. Let's pull up this story here. We'll come to the Pecker in just a minute. David Pecker. We'll come to him. Pecker man. We'll come to him in just a minute. Okay, I have all these tabs open, so you just got to bear with me here. I'm trying to find the Michael Cohen story. Okay, so we know Michael Cohen pleaded guilty back, it was late November, okay? November 29th, Washington Post had the article, Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, pleads guilty to lying to Congress about Moscow project, okay? And Donald Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, pleaded guilty Thursday in New York to lying to Congress about a Moscow real estate project that Trump and his company pursued at the same time he was securing the GOP nomination in 2016. Even though Trump said, I have no business with Russia, don't know anybody, not pursuing any business with Russia, blah, 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 blah. That was a lie. Okay? Cohen is pursuing a Moscow project on behalf of Trump, because it wasn't on behalf of Michael Cohen himself. In a 9-page filing, prosecutors laid out a litany of lies that Michael Cohen admitted he told lawmakers in Congress about the Moscow project, an attempt, Michael Cohen said, to minimize links between the proposed development and Trump and his presidential bid was gaining steam, as his presidential bid was gaining steam, because it is a felony to lie to Congress. Even if you're not under oath, it's still a felony to lie to Congress, okay? All right. So, and this is where Trump was named as individual number one, right? So I'm trying to find that where's the damn Michael Cohen story? We got to pull up another way. You got to bear with me because I literally have about 50 tabs open right now in Firefox. And the other Michael, okay, hold on, is this it here? The other Michael Cohen story I had, I don't know where the hell it went, but I'm pulling it up now. I think this is it here. Okay, so check out this first story from the Washington Post, November 29th, 2018. Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, pleads guilty to lying to Congress about Moscow project, okay? So check that out. And then all right. And then we'll pull this up a different way. Then we'll go to the National Enquirer and David Pecker, because that's an extremely important story, because David Pecker, publisher of the National Enquirer, he's now working with the feds. And he had a vault of stories that the National Enquirer bought from people that were harmful to Donald Trump, and it was called Catch and Kill. They would pay for the exclusive rights to these stories, and then not publish them. And that dealt with a campaign finance violation. Okay, that dealt with a campaign finance violation, and that deals with stories dealing with the Playboy Playmate and also Stormy Daniels, if I remember correctly. Okay, so let's do this here. This is freezing up National Enquirer, and then we'll come back to Michael Cohen, because I'm trying to bring this article up here, but it's freezing up. Okay, so let's look at the story that broke either yesterday or today, dealing with the National Enquirer. Okay. All right, here we go. Let's see. Okay, publisher of National Enquirer admits paying hush money to help Trump ahead of 2016 election. That's a campaign finance violation, which is a felony. Okay, NBCnews.com has this article, and we'll post the links here for you. This is from December 12, 2018. Publisher of National Enquirer admits paying hush money to help Trump ahead of 2016 election. AMI, okay, worked, quote, to ensure that the woman did not publicize damaging allegations, end quote, about Trump ahead of the 2016 election. Okay, so the company that publishes the National Enquirer admitted that it paid $150,000 in hush money to silence alleged mistresses, plural, of then presidential candidate Donald Trump prior to the 2016 election, prosecutors said on Wednesday. The publisher, American Media Inc., will avoid prosecution by stipulating that it worked with Trump's campaign to buy the silence of women, plural, who have identified themselves as adult film actress Stormy Daniels and former Playboy model Karen McDougal. And this was ahead of the 2016 election, prosecutors said. The agreement between prosecutors and American Media Inc. was signed and dated September 21st, 2018, okay? So we just found out about this agreement yesterday, all right? The story broke yesterday. We found out about the catch and kill. We found it because there were stories going back past couple of months dealing with AMI. But the real story of this deal, we found out about yesterday. Trump's former lawyers and fixer, Michael Cohen, was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday for lying to investigators about the hush money operation. Quote, as part of the agreement, AMI admitted that it made the $150,000 payment in concert with a candidate's presidential campaign, and in order to ensure that the woman did not publicize damaging allegations about the candidate, end quote, according to a statement by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, okay? So this is something that Michael Cohen has testified to and admitted about this payment and the purpose of it, okay, as not to damage Donald Trump's campaign. And this is something that David Pecker, who's the CEO of American Media Inc., the publisher of the National Enquirer, this is something he's admitted to as well. So a lot of people say, and Trump tried to say, well, this is, you know, similar to the campaign finance violation lawsuit against, I forgot his name. John, I forgot his name. He ran for president and his presidency was winding down when that campaign violation took place, okay? But this is different because you have witnesses. You have witnesses who are testifying to this, and there's evidence. Okay, it'll come to me in just a minute. But quote, AMI further admitted that its principal, John Edwards, that's who it was, John Edwards, okay. Quote, AMI further admitted that its principal purpose in making the payment was to suppress the woman's story so as to prevent it from influencing the election, end quote. So that means that was a contribution to the campaign, and it was not recorded as a contribution to the campaign, which is a campaign finance violation, and that is a felony. That is a felony, okay? And that's all regulated by the Federal Election Commission, FEC.gov. The practice known in the industry as catch and kill paid women for the exclusive rights to their story with the intention of never actually publishing these stories. A representative for AMI and the company CEO, David Pecker, P-E-C-K-E-R. I ain't making this up. That's just, you can't write a better script than this. The guy's name is Pecker. And that's what got Trump in trouble with Stormy Daniels and McDougal. Okay, Karen McDougal. You can't write a better script than this, right? So a representative for AMI and the company's CEO, David Pecker, a longtime ally of Donald Trump's, declined comment on Wednesday. I'm sure they did. AMI officials will avoid any prosecution as long as they continue to cooperate with investigators, prosecutors said. So all these people are turning on him. And then Alan Weisselberg, Trump's like CFO, the money man, he's working with the feds also. Remember, it was Al Capone's accountant that brought Al Capone down on tax evasion charges. So AMI officials will avoid any prosecution as long as they continue to cooperate with investigators. Quote, assuming AMI's continued compliance with the agreement, the office has agreed not to prosecute AMI, American Media Inc., for its role in that payment, end quote, according to the statement by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Quote, the agreement acknowledges, among other things, American Media Inc.'s acceptance of responsibility, its substantial and important assistance in this investigation, and its agreement to provide cooperation in the future and implement specific improvements to its internal compliance to prevent future violations of the federal campaign finance laws, end quote. Okay, now, when the story first broke about Stormy Daniels, and those that follow me on social media, those that follow me on my personal Facebook page, Michael Imhotep, you may remember this. I posted on Facebook that this sounded like a campaign finance violation because I was posting stories about Stormy Daniels. Now, I was the one who broke this story on 9:10 a.m. WFDF here in Detroit. I was a guest on the Cliff Russell show, and Cliff Russell passed away a few months. He passed away earlier this year. But this story broke about Stormy Daniels, if I remember correctly, it was like January of 2018. And I was on his show. We were talking about, I was on a show for a totally different purpose. And I'm monitoring the news stories. And this story came across my news feed from rawstory.com. The story broke about Stormy Daniels. So I said, Cliff, during the break, I said, Cliff, look at this. I said, look what this fool did now. So I broke the story on his show. And I was following the story, and early on, I posted on Facebook, my Facebook page, I said, this sounds like a campaign finance violation. Because people were saying, okay, so this is about sex. No, I'm saying, no, this is a felony. I said, when you have payments like this, there's a money trail. And I was correct. I don't have a law degree, but I know how to read and do research. And I've been doing this long enough to know what I'm looking at. So the feds are saying this is a federal campaign finance law violation. Okay, so check out this article here, NBCnews.com. Publisher of National Enquirer admits paying hush money to help Trump ahead of 2016 election. Okay, so we'll post this link here. Then we have, I found the one dealing with Michael Cohen. So we'll go to that next. Let me just post this link here for you all. Pecker's testimony corroborates Cohen's confession. Exactly. Arnold said, yeah. See, all this stuff is being corroborated. Or see, Trump can sit up here and tweet all he wants to and say, this person lied, I didn't direct Cohen to do all this and stuff like that. He can do all that. No. The evidence corroborates all of this stuff together. And Michael Cohen has tapes also. He has recordings. We don't even know the content of the majority of his recordings. I can tell you it wasn't good. Okay, and then so let's go to this story here. Where we'll go to the story about Michael Cohen. Then we have to come back because there was another story that broke, two of them. Trump confides to friends he's concerned about impeachment. That was, even though Trump just did an interview on Fox News with Harris Faulkner, the only black woman on Fox News that got a show, and half the time she's ignorant as hell. He's talking about, you know, how you going to impeach somebody for doing a good job? Okay, whatever. It deals with Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, especially Article 2, Section 4, dealing with high crimes and misdemeanors. It don't say nothing about the president doing a good job. You can't impeach the president. Okay. It's dealing with violations of the U.S. Constitution. But then also, we're going to deal with this other article dealing with, what was this one here? This deals with, I'll find it, because there's another article dealing with, I forgot what it was, but it was one I saw. So we'll come to that one also. I have a bunch of tabs open. Okay, this is just stuff in the past 48 hours. Okay, this is just stuff in the past 48 hours. Okay, so we dealt with the one about the feds launching a probe into Trump's inauguration spending. Oh, it's an article dealing with Trump being in the room. This is a huge one. All this stuff is being corroborated. Okay, Trump being in the room when the discussion goes down about the payments. That's another big one. See, Trump can't. See, historically, Trump has been able to pay people off and keep people silent and all this stuff. He can't do that now. He can't do that now. He's got the Mueller investigation. He's got the U.S. Attorney's Office. He's going to have state investigations on his ass. So he's going to be forced to resign from office. This dude is about to go down. And he's going down faster than Stormy Daniels. Okay. All right. Let's see which, I may be able to find an article. I don't know. They keep changing the stories that they have. But this was also one that I had open. Russian operative decorated. So I'll see if I can pull that up. Okay, so let's continue here. All right, so let's look at Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen gets 3 years, says Trump's dirty deeds led him to choose darkness. See, they always find God and Jesus, all this stuff when they get caught. Ever notice that? It's always after they get caught, after the money stops flowing, the wine stops flowing, that's when they find God and everything. And, NBCnews.com, Michael Cohen gets 3 years, says Trump's dirty deeds led him to choose darkness. Cohen had pled guilty to 9 federal charges of tax evasion, violating campaign finance laws, lying to banks, and lying to Congress. Okay, so this is from December 12th, Wednesday, December 12th, NBCnews.com. An emotional Michael Cohen, who said he would take a bullet for Donald Trump. Then when the bullets start flying, then all of a sudden they start singing. That's what happens with all of them. It happened with Roger Stone. It happened with Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort got conflicted. He ended up being a double agent. He's going back to the Trump camp, telling the Trump camp what he's telling the Mueller investigation. His ass sitting in jail right now. An emotional Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former attorney and fixer, was sentenced Wednesday to 3 years behind bars for what a Manhattan federal court judge called a, quote, veritable smorgasbord, end quote, of criminal conduct, veritable smorgasbord of criminal conduct, including making secret payments to women who claimed they had affairs with Donald Trump, lying to Congress, which is a felony, about the president's business dealings with Russia, and failing to report millions of dollars in income. Judge William Pauley, P-A-U-L-E-Y, found Michael Cohen, age 52, deserved, quote, a significant term of imprisonment, end quote, for crimes that were driven by, quote, personal greed and ambition. Personal greed and ambition. So if Cohen is doing all this stuff on behalf of Trump, then what's Trump been doing? If Michael Cohen, who was Trump's attorney for about 10 years, if he's doing all this stuff on behalf of Trump, then what's Trump been doing? This is bigger than Watergate. And keep in mind, what brought Richard Nixon down was not the Watergate break-in, which took place June 17, 1972. It was the cover-up of the Watergate break-in, because Richard Nixon tried to use the CIA to get the FBI to back off of the investigation. And he was on tape doing it. So the first article of impeachment against Richard Nixon was obstruction of justice. The second article of impeachment was abuse of power. So articles of impeachment were drawn up by the U.S. House of Representatives, but Nixon resigned before he was put on trial in the U.S. Senate. So Nixon resigned. He announced his resignation August 8th, 1974. And 12 noon the following day, August 9th, he officially resigned, and Gerald Ford, his vice president, became president, was sworn in as president. But remember, Gerald Ford was not his original vice president. His original vice president was Spiro T. Agnew, but Spiro T. Agnew had to resign as vice president 8 months before Richard Nixon resigned for president, because Spiro T. Agnew got hit with tax evasion charges and corruption charges. Go research Spiro T. Agnew, who was Richard Nixon's original vice president. He had to resign from office. This corruption here with Trump makes Richard Nixon, what was going on there, it makes them look like Boy Scouts. So Judge William Pauley found Michael Cohen deserved, quote, a significant term of imprisonment for crimes that were driven by personal greed and ambition. Michael Cohen appeared to get choked up as he pleaded with the judge for mercy. Yeah, see, they always find God when they get caught. He told Judge Pauley, he was taking full responsibility for his actions, but laid much of the blame at the feet of his former boss he once said he would take a bullet for. Rabbit hunting is never fun when the rabbit has the gun. Quote, I have been living a personal and mental incarceration ever since the day that I accepted the offer to work for a real estate mogul whose business acumen that I deeply admired, end quote, Michael Cohen told the judge, saying his blind loyalty to Donald Trump led him darkness over light, end quote, darkness over light. He noted that Donald Trump had blasted him as being weak on Twitter. Now, all these tweets, right, they're going to be used against Donald Trump, because that could really be looked at witness tampering. Because Michael Cohen is a witness. Trump is attacking Michael Cohen on Twitter. All that's evidence. This is the dumbest. I don't cuss, but damn, this is the dumbest MF I've ever seen. I mean, if you're going to be a criminal, at least keep your mouth shut. This the dumbest ass criminal I've ever seen. Quote, it was correct, but for a much different reason than he was implying. It was because time and time again, I felt it was my duty to cover up his dirty deeds, Michael Cohen said. Quote, my weakness can be characterized as a blind loyalty to Donald Trump, and I was weak for not having the strength to question and to refuse his demands, end quote. Since he first pleaded guilty in August of 2018, Michael Cohen said Donald Trump, quote, publicly mocks me, calling me a rat and a liar, and insists that the court sentence me to the absolute maximum time in prison, end quote. Okay, see, wait till see, all this is gonna come back on Trump. Okay. All right. So you can check out the rest of this article. Okay, this is from NBCnews.com. So this is a free news source for you. You can read as many articles as you want from NBC News. TheHill.com is another good political news source. You can read as many articles there. Washington Post and New York Times are really good. A lot of good information, very accurate, but you're limited at six free articles per month with those publications. So I read that in a day from them. I have a monthly digital subscription, but I understand if people don't want to or can't do that. I understand how it is, but so that's why I try to give you different news sources you get this information from. CNN is good. I have a problem with the way CNN's articles print out, one. And then also with CNN, if there's a video clip that they have, it starts playing automatically. With NBC News, the video clips they have embedded in the articles don't start playing automatically. So a lot of times when I'm doing broadcasts like this one right here, if I have the articles up, it causes problems when videos start playing automatically, okay? And a lot of these articles I print out, as you see here, right? So there's certain reasons why I choose different news sources, but as far as reliability, CNN is good, okay? Lee Thomas Wilson said Trump paid his women with his own money and they were all over 30. How is sex with adults bigger than Watergate? Stop watching CNN, bro. Well, first of all, Lee, I don't watch CNN. One, two, you ever heard of campaign finance law violations? This ain't about the sex. It's not about paying them. It's why they were being paid, okay? Go do some research, Lee. Go research campaign finance law violations. Go research the Federal Election Commission and what a campaign finance law violation is. This is not about sex, okay? And I don't even watch CNN. So I find it interesting when people come on here. You can watch this broadcast, but take notes because you're gonna learn something. I find it interesting when people come on here and provide no evidence, have no clue what they're talking about. I'm going through breaking it down, explaining this to you. So keep watching, Lee. You're going to learn something. Lindy Love said Trump thinks he is above. Yes, Trump thinks he is above the law. And see, Trump is like the ultimate salesman. He's the ultimate con and ultimate fraud. See, a lot of those buildings that his name is on, he doesn't even own those buildings. He licensed his name to be on those buildings. He's not a good businessman. He's not a good businessman, okay? What he was able to do, and see, it was his daddy who actually set him up in business. Trump lied and said he got a $1 million loan and had to pay it back with interest. No, the loan was about $9 million because, see, he admitted that in a deposition because he sued Timothy O'Brien, who wrote the book Trump Nation. Timothy O'Brien had his attorney put Trump under deposition, and they caught Trump in about 30 lies. Because one thing that's said about Trump, see, a lot of people think Trump is a pathological liar. He's not a pathological liar. He doesn't lie uncontrollably. Because what we found is that when he's under oath in a deposition, he says something differently than what he says in front of the cameras, what he says on stage. And he tells the truth under deposition, penalty of perjury. And it contradicts what he said in interviews, what he said on the stage, and all this stuff. So if you read Trump Nation, Timothy O'Brien wrote an article for Bloomberg detailing how they caught Trump in 30 lies. Okay? And in that deposition, Trump, when they talked about how much money he got from his father, right? Trump said, I think it was around $9 million. No, see, on stage, he said it was $1 million. So research Timothy O'Brien, because you're gonna see that Trump says something entirely different when he was under oath, penalty of perjury, and they caught him in lies. Do you get Trump okay, so Laurie asked, do you think Trump will get elected for a second term? No, hell no. He ain't gonna survive this one. Trump is going to be forced to resign. I don't see him surviving 2019. Why? Well, first of all this is collapsing on him right now. What happens January 3rd, 2019? Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, which means they have subpoena power, which means every committee in the House of Representatives, Democrats will be in control of. There are at least 85 investigations that Democrats can launch against Trump. Because, see, if Republicans had been doing their job and most of them didn't, they would have launched these investigations already. But because many Republicans were derelict in their duty and they were trying to protect Trump, now when Democrats take control of the House of Representatives, now they have to fulfill their constitutional responsibility and launch these investigations. And then also, let's keep in mind, if you go back to the 2016 election, Trump did not get a majority of the votes, and he did not get a plurality of the votes. Well, if you look at the blue wave that just happened, November 6, 2018, people are realizing what happens when you don't vote. That's how you got this jackass. I know the Russian involvement. I talked about that back in 2016. I was talking about the Fidelis report and the CrowdStrike report before most people were talking about it, because I read it. Because I heard Malcolm Nance on MSNBC talking about the Fidelis report and CrowdStrike report, so I went and read it. And Fidelis and CrowdStrike were two of the four cybersecurity companies that the Democratic National Committee had investigate what happened with the cyber break-in, to the Democratic National Committee. The first one was CrowdStrike. So I read their reports, and they talked about two groups of Russians with links to Russian intelligence that infiltrated the Democratic National Committee. Now, we didn't find out till March of 2017 that Republicans also infiltrated the Republican National Committee, the RNC, and got emails there. But it was old email domains that they targeted. It wasn't until March of 2017 when at then FBI Director James Comey was testifying in front of Congress that we found that out. So then the question is, well, wait a second. When emails were leaked to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, why weren't any emails leaked from Republicans? See, this is a question not a lot of people are asking. Okay, you want some evidence on this, okay? See, this is a question not a lot of people are asking, because I think that Russians were using the information that was in those emails. Even though these were old email domains that weren't being used, it doesn't mean that there was not incriminating information in those emails that could be used as leverage. Okay, so if you leak emails from the Democrats, and even though they tried to infiltrate Hillary Clinton's emails, her personal server, they weren't able to do that, but they were able to get correspondence. They had John Podesta, her campaign, John Podesta, they were able to hack his emails. So there's correspondence between her and John Podesta. And they leaked that to WikiLeaks. And then Donald Trump, in the last 30 days of the campaign, mentioned WikiLeaks at least 164 times. ThinkProgress.org has documentation on this. ThinkProgress.org, they talk about Donald Trump in the last 30 days of the campaign, in campaign speeches, in interviews, on Twitter, mentioned WikiLeaks at least 164 times. But then after the campaign, Donald Trump said WikiLeaks didn't have any bearing on the campaign. And he's on the campaign trail telling people, read WikiLeaks. Did you see WikiLeaks today? This is what WikiLeaks said. I love WikiLeaks. Okay. All this stuff is coming out. Okay. What's done in the dark will come out in the light. Okay. Most lies are not illegal. When you lie to Congress, Lee, that is illegal. Campaign finance law violations are illegal. So you need to do some research. Okay. All right, let's see if we can get this up. This comes up. Okay. I'll post a link afterwards. But you can just look at James Comey, March 2017 congressional testimony. You can Google that and it'll come up, but I'll post a link after this, okay? Kenyon Chapman said, name a U.S. president who has gone to jail. Crickets, okay? Name a U.S. president that has done as much dirt as Donald Trump. We haven't seen anything like this on this level. And see, Richard Nixon did not have business dealings like Donald Trump does. Richard Nixon resigned from office. He got a presidential pardon. If hypothetically, if Trump resigns from office and gets a presidential pardon from Mike Pence, who I think is going to be forced to resign from office also, tell you the truth, Mike Pence, because Mike Pence knew what was going on. A presidential pardon does not protect you from state prosecution. Trump is open to state prosecution also. We've never seen anything like this before. This is why when you watch interviews with presidential historians, Michael Beschloss, other presidential historians, Jim Meacham, I think it's John Meacham, they tell you we've never seen anything like this before. So just saying, oh, there hasn't been a president who's done prison time. We've never seen anything like this before. If you study history, you will know that. If you don't study history, okay, I understand that. If you actually study history, you know, we've never seen anything like this before, especially with a foreign adversary. We've never seen anything like this before. I haven't even talked about the money laundering charges that you're going to see coming out against Trump. I haven't even gotten to that yet. I'm not going to have time to deal with that. But you're gonna because Paul Manafort, if I remember correctly, Paul Manafort pleaded guilty also to money laundering. But you're going to see that that's going to tie in to Donald Trump as well, because Donald Trump has sold condos and real estate properties to Russians. He has a history doing that. Well, one of the main ways that Russians launder money is through real estate. So we've never seen anything like this before. If you actually study history, you'll notice. If you don't study history, then you okay. So let's look at this right here. So this came up. Comey, Congress. Let's pull this up. CNN had a story about this, and they actually have the video of James Comey talking about Russia hacked the RNC's emails, the old email domains. Let's see here. Let's do, I think it's under Comey and Russia. Yeah. Okay, FBI's Comey. Republicans also hacked by Russia. Republicans also hacked by Russia. Now, we didn't find this out until March of 2017. Most people don't even know this stuff, okay? Kenyon, you're going to deal with state attorney generals. You're going to deal with state attorney generals. We've never seen anything like this before. There's no precedent for this. There's no map. You're going to deal with state attorney generals, okay? Investigations. That's what's this. So it's not going to be the federal. It probably won't be it could be the federal investigations because we haven't seen what's all this coming out. But the state investigations, and when they get to the money laundering investigations at the state level, presidential pardons do not protect you from state investigations. Okay, so FBI's Comey, Republicans were hacked by Russia also. Now, keep in mind, these emails were not released to WikiLeaks. The question we have to ask is why? I think it's because Russians are using them as leverage over certain Republicans, which would make sense because you release the ones from the Democrats and you say, this is what's going to happen if you don't do A, B, C, D. And you hold these back and use them as leverage. Okay, that's coming up, and we'll post that link there. And then you have also the story from today that Donald Trump was in the room when the payments were being discussed. Imagine that. Donald Trump was in the room when the payments were being discussed. Okay. No, he's not going to get off. He's not going to get off scot-free. At the least, there's going to be millions of dollars in fines. See, he already had to pay the state of New York a $24 million settlement and a $1 million fine. That was a civil lawsuit. That was dealing with the fake university he was running. Go research that. Wade said, how did a man get elected when he clearly has no political experience? I don't get it. It's because, unfortunately, many of our people can't count, and many people don't count, and didn't realize that if enough people didn't vote, then Trump would be elected. And see, the other thing is, see, a lot of white people voted to. A lot of white people have a fear of becoming a numerical minority, right? So if you look at, and I've talked about this before, we can look at the evidence. We see study after study after study show that many white people voted for Trump because they feared becoming a numerical minority, and they feared there was cultural anxiety, okay? And cultural anxiety is another word for white supremacy, all right? So let's look very quickly at this, and you can go research this yourself. And the other thing is, a lot of African Americans, we don't understand politics, and a lot of us can't count, because African Americans had the votes to stop Donald Trump, and most of us still don't know it. 2 years later, most of us still don't know it, because we keep listening to people who tell us we're only 14% of the U.S. population, or 13% of the U.S. population. Is actually 14%. It's 47.4 million African Americans based upon the June 2018 U.S. Census press release. But most of our people can't tell you how many African Americans were registered to vote in the 2016 election and what percentage of those registered to vote actually voted. That's what the most important thing is, not the percentage of the population you are. That's not what's important. What's important is how many African Americans were actually registered to vote and what percentage actually voted. There was a 7 percentage point drop in the percentage of African Americans registered to vote who actually voted in 2016. There was a record percentage that voted in 2012 when President Obama was on the ballot. If we voted at the same level in 2016 that we voted in 2012, Trump would not be president right now, because he won the 3 battleground states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by only 78,000 votes. He won Michigan by 10,704 votes. The cross-checking system, which knocked 1.1 million people off the voter rolls across the country, it knocked 54,000 people off the voter rolls in Michigan. And it targeted people with ethnic sounding names. And it targeted people who Republicans felt would vote Democratic. We still don't understand this. It was cultural anxiety that drove white working class voters to Trump. It was cultural anxiety. TheAtlantic.com, May 9, 2017. A new study finds that fear of societal change, not economic pressure, motivated votes for the president among non-salaried workers without college degrees. Basically non-salary white workers without college degrees. There's a fear of the browning of America. Some white people, not all white people, some white people have a fear of becoming a numerical minority. This is why Trump targeted Mexicans. He didn't tell you 40% of undocumented immigrants fly over here. He didn't tell you 40% of undocumented immigrants fly over here. They come on visas. overstay their visas, and become illegal, become undocumented. He didn't talk about that. He wanted to talk about the ones running across the border. He didn't tell you that many of them, like coming from Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, places like that, he didn't want to tell you that they are largely fleeing conditions that U.S. policies in those countries had a big hand in creating. He didn't want to deal with that at all. But there's a fear that by 2043, white people will become a numerical minority in this country, and there will be no one dominant group, okay? And there'll be more people of color than white people. So not all white people fear this, but there are a significant number. White Americans carried Donald Trump to the White House. He won college-educated white voters by a 4-point margin over Hillary Clinton, according to exit polls. But his real victory was among members of the white working class. Twice as many of these voters cast their ballots for Donald Trump than for Hillary Clinton. Okay, so read the rest of this. So read this, theatlantic.com. It was cultural anxiety that drove white working class voters to Trump. Okay, then, so that was May 9th, 2017. And I deal with this in my lecture, African-American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. I've studied this extensively. Vox.com had an article December 15th, 2017. So this was this time last year. The past year of research has made it very clear. Trump won because of racial resentment. It wasn't because of economics. It wasn't because they thought he would be better economics. It wasn't because of the economy. It was dealing with racial resentment, racism, cultural anxiety, and the fear of the browning of America. Okay, so when he talks about make America great again, what he's talking about is going back to a period of time before civil rights. He's talking about going back to a period of time when white people felt they had more control. A lot of white people want to go back, not all of them, but a lot of white people want to go back to Andy Griffith, 8B, Opie, Beaver Cleaver, Ozzie and Harriet, things like this, right? And he was a backlash to 2 terms of President Barack Obama, any perceived gains that African Americans were making. There's always a backlash when African Americans make gains. There was a backlash to the Reconstruction era, okay, from 1865 to 1877, right after slavery ends. And you have the Compromise of 1877. There was a backlash to the Civil Rights Movement. So you have the Civil Rights Movement, you have the rise of Confederate monuments that took place in this country. You have a rise in schools right after Brown versus Board of Education, desegregation Supreme Court case in 1954. You're going to have a rise in privatized schools in this country that were for white people. They're going to issue vouchers to lower income white people who could not afford tuition to these schools to be able to go there. And this was designed because they did not want to desegregate these schools. So they create these privatized schools. And you also have an increase, right after Brown versus Board of Education, of schools being renamed after Confederate heroes. So you study the privatized school movement, you see a big increase in this right after Brown versus Board of Education, and you see the usage of vouchers. And the vouchers were not for African Americans largely. They were for lower income white people so they could keep these schools white. They were called segregation academies. And Cindy Hyde Smith, Senator of Mississippi, and keep in mind, Mississippi, one of the backlashes that we saw right after Brown versus Board of Education was the creation of the White Citizens Council. It started in 1954 in Mississippi. And the White Citizens Council spreads all throughout the South. And the White Citizens Council in Mississippi put their political weight behind a man named Ross Barnett, and they were able to get him elected as governor of Mississippi, okay? And then we know August 28, 1955, you have the lynching of Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi. So when you study history, you see any type of advancements we make, there's always a backlash to that. And Richard Nixon was a backlash to the civil rights. Richard Nixon, his election in 1968, running on the platform of law and order, he was a backlash to the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, the rebellions that were taking place across this country. He was a backlash to Executive Order 11246, September 25th, 1965, that we call affirmative action. Okay, he was a backlash to all of that. So when you study our history, whenever we make any type of gains, there's always a white lash, a white backlash to that by some white people, not all white people, but it was enough to get this fool elected. But we still didn't understand the power of our vote, and Republicans fear our vote more than we value it. This is why there was unprecedented voter suppression that took place in the 2016 election. You had 868 fewer polling places, as the nation.com reported, 868 fewer polling places. This tied into Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act being gutted by the U.S. Supreme Court case of Shelby County versus Holder, okay, of 2013. You have 14 new states that had new voter ID laws, which are voter suppression laws. And we didn't understand all this stuff, okay? So you got black people running around talking about the Electoral College. One, half of them can't even spell Electoral College. Two, they can't explain to you how it works. They can't tell you when the Electoral College votes or what determines how many votes a particular state has. How do you determine how many votes a particular state has? Michigan has 16, Vermont has 3, Washington, D.C. has 3, California has 66. So when I watched interviews, and I saw over 100 campaign speeches that Donald Trump delivered, because I do research all day long. I told you I do this full time. I run the African History Network, do my radio show, do the broadcast, do research. And I was doing, during the 2016 election, I was doing radio 5 days a week on the Empowerment Radio Network. So when I asked people, well, Donald Trump became president-elect the morning of November 9th, 2016, but the Electoral College doesn't vote until the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. Explain that to me. Electoral College didn't vote until December 19th, 2016. The Electoral College does not vote until the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. The people who talk about the Electoral College, 99% of them can't even explain to you how it works. Now, what I find very interesting is in the dozens of interviews I saw with Donald Trump supporters during the 2016 election, outside of the campaign rally, inside the campaign rally, in focus groups, things like this, they said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Some of them didn't know what a polling place was. Some of them weren't registered to vote. Some of them hadn't voted in years. Okay, some of them didn't know what date the election was. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. None of them said, we don't choose the president, Electoral College chooses the president. None of them, not one. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Some of them said, Donald Trump is our last hope. You talk to African Americans on social media, and I've studied the history of the Electoral College. That goes back to the spring of 1787, the Philadelphia Convention, where they're drafting and debating the U.S. Constitution. Most African Americans can't even explain the Electoral College to you. This is why we must do research. Proper documentation ends all conversation. This is why we must do research. Okay, and the people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. And this is why understanding politics is so important, okay? I'm all for economic empowerment. I've been teaching it for 26 years. I'm all for economic empowerment. My degrees in business administration. I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years, did business consulting for 7 years. But when we study the pyramid principle that Professor James Small and Dr. Leonard Jeffries teach us, and they're two of my teachers, and I use it in a lot of my presentations, the foundation is African history and culture, which gives us our VIPs, our values, our interests, and our principles, which influences our economic empowerment and our political empowerment. We have to have a synthesis of all three of those. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Politics deals with the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is what politics is. So It doesn't matter how much money we have. We have a $1.3 trillion economy. About 50% of that is disposable income. That whole 1.3 trillion is not disposable income. Okay, so NBCnews.com reported today and other news outlets. They posted this article 3:41 p.m. today. Trump was in the room during hush money discussions with tabloid publisher. Trump was in the room during hush money discussions with tabloid publisher. A source confirmed to NBC News that Trump was the, quote, other member of the campaign, end quote, present when Michael Cohen and David Pecker agreed to silence women. Keep in mind, Donald Trump submitted his answers to the written questions to Mueller's investigation. He submitted. We don't know what he said, right? But I guarantee you the evidence is contradicting the stuff that he submitted to Mueller. And that's like sworn testimony, okay? Okay, so Donald Trump was the third person in the room in August 2015 when his attorney Michael Cohen and National Enquirer publisher David Pecker discussed ways Pecker could help counter negative stories about Trump's relationship with women. NBC News has confirmed. As part of a non-prosecution agreement disclosed Wednesday by federal prosecutors, American Media Inc., which is the National Enquirer's parent company, admitted that, quote, Pecker offered to help deal with negative stories about that presidential candidate's relationship with women by, among other things, assisting the campaign in identifying such stories so they could be purchased and their publication avoided. The, quote, statement of admitted facts, end quote, says that American Media Inc., AMI, the parent company of National Enquirer, admitted making $150,000 payment, admitted making a $150,000 payment, quote, in concert with the campaign, end quote, and says that Pecker, David Cohen, it says that David Pecker and Michael Cohen and, quote, at least one other member of the campaign, end quote, were in the meeting. According to a person familiar with the matter, the other member was Donald Trump. Trump was identified as attending the meeting by the Wall Street Journal. Daniel Goldman, an NBC News analyst and former assistant U.S. attorney, said the agreement does not detail what Trump said and did in the meeting. Quote, but if Trump is now in the room as early as August of 2015, and in combination with the recording where Trump clearly knows what Cohen is talking about with regarding to David Pecker, and we'll scroll down here in just a second. Okay, so you all didn't hear any of this, right? Well, I'm waiting for that to scroll down because the screen is freezing up. Read the article from Vox.com. Did you hear me talk about the article from Vox.com? The past year of research has made it very clear. Trump won because of racial resentment. The past year of research has made it very clear. Trump won because of racial resentment. Another study produces the same findings we've seen over and over again. This is from December 15, 2017, okay? This deals with what happened during the 2016 election. More than a year after about what drove him to victory. Was it genuine anxiety about the state of the economy, okay? Or was it racism and racial resentment? It was racism and racial resentment, okay? Over at the Washington Post, researchers Matthew Fowler, Vladimir Medencia, and Kathy Cohen have published the results of a new survey on these questions with a focus on the 41% of white millennials who voted for Donald Trump and the sense of white vulnerability that motivated them. The conclusion is very clear. Contrary to what some have suggested, white millennial Trump voters were not in more economically precarious situations than non-Trump voters. Fully 86% of them reported being employed, a rate similar to non-Trump voters. And they were 14% less likely to be low income than white voters who did not support Donald Trump. Employment and income were not significantly related to the sense of white vulnerability. So what was? It was racial resentment. Even when controlling for partisanship, ideology, region, and a host of other factors, white millennials fit Michael Tesler's analysis explored here. As he put it, economic anxiety isn't driving racial resentment. Rather, racial resentment is driving economic anxiety. Economic anxiety was not driving racial resentment. It was racial resentment that was driving economic anxiety. We found, as he has in a larger population, that racial resentment is the biggest predictor of white vulnerability among white millennials. Economic variables like education, income, and employment made a negligible difference. Okay, so you can read the rest of that article. And then the last one I'll share with you from thenation.com. Economic anxiety did not make people vote Trump. Racism did. Economic anxiety did not make people vote Trump. Racism did. Now, this is from May 8th, 2017. So the one from Vox.com that I just shared with you, that's from December 15th, 2017. The one from The Nation is from May 8th, 2017. Okay, like 7 months before that. Was Donald Trump elected because of racism or economic anxiety? Few questions about the 2016 election have generated more analysis. As we've previously written, it is clear racism propelled Trump to the Republican nomination. But how did the racial resentment that powered Trump's ascent differ from the support for Republican candidates in prior elections? And what was the relative importance of economic peril to voting in 2016 compared to several different types of racism and racial animus exhibited by voters? The answers can be found in the comprehensive American National Election Studies pre- and post-election survey of over 4,000 respondents, which we analyzed to explore the impact of racism and economic peril on 2016 voting behavior. The results are clear and move a long way towards settling this debate. Okay, so you can read that. It's a long article, but the first few paragraphs sum it up. Because I printed this article and it's like 13 pages. So you can read this. This is from The Atlantic. This one's from thenation.com. Economic anxiety didn't make people vote Trump. Racism did. All right, so we need to research this. There's always a backlash to any type of to any type of African-American advancement. There's always a backlash to that, okay? All right. Okay, so let's go back to this article here from Trump was in the room during hush money discussion with tabloid publisher. So Daniel Goldman, an NBC News analyst and former U.S. assistant attorney, he said, but if Trump is now in the room as early as August 2015, and in combination with the recording where Trump clearly knows what Michael Cohen is talking about with regarding to David Pecker, you now squarely place Trump in the middle of a conspiracy to commit campaign finance fraud, end quote. A spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, which investigated Michael Cohen's hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, declined to comment. McDougal, a former Playboy playmate, and her attorneys have said that the National Enquirer paid her $150,000 in August of 2016 as part of a catch and kill strategy to keep the story from going, ads popping up, what the hell is this? To keep the story from going public, okay? So that's August of 2016. The election was November 6, 2016. Okay. In August 2016, as part of a catch and kill strategy to keep the story from circulating publicly. Okay, so you can read the rest of this. That's a campaign finance law violation, which is a felony. All right, so how y'all like this type of information? Eric Potts said Trump's in the room. Yeah. Okay, so hey, be sure to follow us here on Facebook, the African History Network on Facebook. Turn on the notifications so you're notified when we go live. Visit our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep on YouTube, IMHOTEP, and turn on the notification there so you know when we upload videos and go live also. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network because it takes a lot to do this. You can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. If you have a PayPal account, if you don't have a PayPal account, go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, click on the yellow donate button, and you can pay debit card or credit card through PayPal. You can make a donation. That helps support us, helps us stay on the air, keep doing the research, pay the bills, etc. You can order our DVD lectures, and I have about 40 of my DVD lectures there. We have a lot of them in bundle packs at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And we have the 8 DVD bundle pack, The Africans That Were Here Before Columbus, The Africans That Were Here Before Columbus, which is a 8 DVD bundle pack, which deals with the African presence in this country going back at least 51,700 years. It has a double presentation I did with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote this book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. It has a presentation from Dr. Ivan Van Sertima that wrote the book, They Came Before Columbus. There was a presentation from him dealing with They Came Before Columbus, one from Dr. John Henry Clark dealing with Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, a lecture I did dealing with the history of Christopher Columbus, as well as the history of Halloween as well, because October 31st is Halloween. You know, October 12th is Columbus Day, okay? And when we discuss the transatlantic slave trade, we have to first understand that African people are the original people of North, Central, and South America. And we've been in this land we call the United States of America at least 51,700 years, okay? So slave trade happened, but it didn't happen exactly the way that we've been taught that it happened. African people did not first come to this land August 20th, 1619 in Jamestown, Virginia. That did happen, but we were here going back tens of thousands of years, but we don't understand that history. This was our land stolen from us, but we're not taught that, okay? And even when we study the transatlantic slave trade, which is important to study, we can't start in 1619 or in the 1440s when the Portuguese get involved, because the Portuguese are the first ones involved in the transatlantic slave trade. You know, we have to understand thousands of years of history and a sequence of historical events, and we have to understand the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors as well. And the Moors are taking teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt into Europe that are going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. So we have that bundle pack at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, The Africans That Were Here Before Columbus, 8 DVD bundle pack. Also, we have the online courses that I teach. They're all on demand. You can watch from around the world, and they're in the bundle pack as well. 10-course online bundle pack, and this ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That's on sale, $60, regularly $130. It also includes great African women in history, the mothers of civilization. It includes online class with the film Black Panther, and these are PowerPoint presentations I'm doing. We have video clips, all different types of things like that in there as well. And then Also, we have for the children, we have the Meltrek DVDs, the Meltrek series, animated series, that teaches our children their history. This deals with exploring ancient Africa. This one deals with exploring pre-Columbian Americas, who was here before Europeans got here. And this combines animation with conscious hip hop, and we have the 45-page storybook or 47-page storybook, as well as the coloring books as well. So the Meltrek series, we have that at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for children, and we have that in the bundle pack also, okay? All right. Okay, Wade said, thank you. We as minorities need to be educated. Job well done. All right, thanks, Wade. But we have to stop referring to our because minority embeds in our minds subconsciously an inferiority complex, because minority means lesser than. It's a numerical, it means to numerically be lesser, or it means lesser than, and it disempowers you. Okay, so even in a city like Detroit, where we're the majority population, many of us still refer to ourselves as minorities, and we're 80% of the population here in Detroit, okay? So we have to stop referring to ourselves as minorities. All right, and then we have to be prepared to become also a numerical majority, or at least non-European people becoming a majority population in this country in 2043. So there's a transition, there's a shift that's taking, there's a shift that's taking place, okay? And we have to be prepared for that shift. Okay. All right, and then lastly, we'll deal with check out this article, NBCnews.com, dealing with the incoming New York Attorney General. All right. Now, people haven't studied Schneiderman, who had to resign from office. Schneiderman successfully sued Donald Trump for running that fake university, Trump University. So when people say it's a waste of time going after Trump, you probably don't have a law degree and you haven't done any research. We haven't even talked about money laundering. We haven't talked about obstruction of justice and Deutsche Bank, which Donald Trump has a $300 million loan from, and Jared Kushner has a $285 million loan from Deutsche Bank. And Deutsche Bank was one of the, and Deutsche Bank got popped. They had to pay a $600 million fine to the federal government for laundering $10 billion in money from Russia. And Deutsche Bank was something that Preet Bharara, the U.S. attorney in Manhattan, he was in one of the things he was investigating when he was fired by Donald Trump was Deutsche Bank. See, we haven't even talked about that. We haven't talked about the money laundering, things like this. And these are all things that it doesn't matter whether it's a president or not, he can be sued for by state's attorney generals. See, that's a whole nother conversation that people don't want to have. Okay. All those sexual assault cases. Oh yeah, see, you talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Oh man, see, that's a whole nother can of worms. Jeffrey Epstein, because that's coming out now also. Jeffrey Epstein, this guy has allegedly sexually abused like about 80 women, I think it is, 80 younger girls, things like this. And now is being investigated. Well, wait a second. Why did he get only like 13 months in a federal prison? Why did he get such a sweetheart deal? All this stuff is coming out now. Okay? Yeah, I talked about Jeffrey Epstein over a year ago, but no, it's back in the news now. That's back just like this past week. That's been back in the news. Okay? And some of the girls who he allegedly sexually abused starting to talk. All this stuff is coming out. All right. And then read the article from NBCnews.com, incoming New York Attorney General plans wide-ranging investigations as well. This system is not playing games either. Okay. This system ain't playing games. Deutsche Bank is DUICHE. is Deutsche, something like that. Deutsche Bank. It's Dutch. Deutsche Bank. Okay, they're going to investigate Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross was the vice chair of Cyprus Bank before he was Commerce Secretary. Cyprus Bank is known to launder money from Russia. So how did he become Commerce Secretary? Go research Cyprus Bank and Wilbur Ross, who's Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary. He was vice chair of Cyprus Bank. When you keep investigating this, then you keep finding Russia. Rex Tillerson, who was Donald Trump's first Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson was the CEO of, I think it was Exxon Oil Company. And he received the highest award that you can receive from the Russian government and not be like a citizen of Russia. He received that award. How did Rex Tillerson, who had no government experience, never worked in government before, how did he become Secretary of State? Connection to Russia. When Donald Trump, right after he became president, he had this press conference and he had all these stacks of paper there and nothing written on the paper. These file folders, and he talked about he's gonna, his children his sons are gonna run the business. He's not gonna have anything to do with the business like this, right? The law firm he hired to handle all that, that law firm was looked at very favorably by Russia. So then you start following this throughout the past almost 2 years. And you keep finding all these Russian connections. And I don't think Donald Trump speaks Russian. Why is that? Go look at Washington Post and look at the article and the graphic, the interactive graphic they have. Russians interacted with at least 14 Trump associates during the campaign and transition, and they make all the connections. They tie all this stuff together. And then Yahoo News, just a couple of days ago, they had an article dealing with 16 Trump associates that had connections to Russians. Okay? So this stuff is not by accident. This was coordinated. And as I told people before, Donald Trump is the Manchurian candidate. I really think Donald Trump is the Manchurian candidate. If he's not, he's the closest thing we've had to him. I really think Donald Trump is the Manchurian candidate, and he's the first Russian president of the United States. Incoming New York Attorney General plans wide-ranging investigations of Trump and family. Just elected Letitia James, who takes office next month, January 2019, tells NBC she will probe real estate deals, Trump Tower meeting, emoluments, the emoluments clause, Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution. He's in violation of the emoluments clause because of his, in Washington, D.C., the hotel in Washington, D.C., he's in violation of that, but possibly in New York, the state of New York is in violation of the emoluments clause as well. That's Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution, as well as the Trump Foundation and a whole lot more. Oh man, it's going to be a wild 2019. Okay, it's going to be a wild 2019. All right. All right, so look, hey, we have to get out of here. Thanks for watching. Share this broadcast. Follow us and sign up for our email newsletter also. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Those in the Detroit area, I'll be speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, December 27th, second day of Kwanzaa, Kuji Chagalia. The Kwanzaa event is there 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. I think it's 6 p.m. About 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The actual program is about 6 to 8. Organized by the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. So I'll be the keynote speaker. And I'll deal with Kwanzaa and how Kwanzaa is rooted in traditional African first fruit harvest festivals, and we'll deal with some of the principles of Kwanzaa. We'll deal with the importance of Kwanzaa today in the Trump administration, but also we'll deal with how Kwanzaa ties into the film Black Panther and how the film Black Panther deals with African history, culture, spiritual systems, language, things like that. Okay. And now my DVD lectures dealing with the film Black Panther, also at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have them in the bundle pack as well. I've done a lot of research on the film, on the Black Panther comic book, and how the comic book and film tie into African history and culture, things like that. Okay. Carol said, I think that the money laundering is easy to prove at this point. You ain't lying. Money laundering is very easy to prove. Okay. Wait till Mueller submits his report. Wait till Mueller submits his report. All hell's gonna break loose then. All right. Okay. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. And we broadcast right here on our Facebook fan page, and we posted videos at our website, the African History Network. I just posted one today, actually, from this past Sunday. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring African people throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. One of our advertisers is Crazy Boy Honey. Crazy Boy Honey. So check out Crazy Boy Honey. We'll give you the website. I think it's crazyboyhoney.com. We'll post it here, and you hear them broadcast. You hear the commercials on our broadcast as well, audio podcasts of our shows. African American business owners, email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay? Right now, let's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.